In this video, what we're going to be talking about is what triggered my awakening. Why is it that I'm recording a video every single day? Why is it that I'm teaching people how to step out of the thinking and enter the moment? What actually brought me to learn that myself? Why is it that I'm doing what I do? Because I was reading through my comments the other day and somebody asked me, what triggered you on this path? What were some challenges along the way? And so I'm going to start off by explaining my past, because I used to be very, very anxious all the time. I would always be worried about everything. It was almost like my critical thinking was just on overdrive, and I was just thinking about things way too much. And I was totally unconscious of this in that moment. I was very anxious, very stressed. I had a lot of self-image issues, couldn't really talk to people a lot, couldn't really connect with people on that deeper level. I was always in my head, and I was always disconnected. I used to have a lot of health issues when I was younger too. And so when all this is happening, it's just like I really wanted to find a way out. And so that's not exactly why I went on this path, but it eventually led to me realizing some things, watching a couple documentaries, watching a couple videos, and then I learned about meditation. And I learned the practical benefits of meditation and how it can completely change your life. So I was mind blown. I was like, okay, well, wait a second. Meditation can actually physically change your brain. Meditation can actually lower the amount of thoughts that are happening in your life. Meditation, I read this study that meditation is going to lower the parts of the brain, associated with anxiety, fear, and worry literally will shrink. Okay, and the parts of the brain associated with concentration and focus literally would grow in advanced meditators. And I was really mind blown by this study. I was like, well, wait a second, why would I not be meditating if this is true? And why is nobody else meditating? I was just like, there's absolutely zero reason why I shouldn't be meditating at this point. So I was like, okay, let's do this. Let's start meditating. So it all started as a very practical, ego-driven drive. Ego meaning I was unconsciously still stuck in my thoughts, worried and fearful all the time. And I was like, okay, you know what? Let's do this. Let's try to meditate, because this is going to help my anxiety. And it just made total sense to me, because I also knew at the time on some level there's a mind-body connection, and that the two are actually connected in some ways. And so this actually gave me a little bit of vision and drive to do this every single day. And so I watched a video by actualize.org, and he was explaining, okay, this has to be done every single day. So I was like, okay, let's do it every single day, because I see the benefits, I see the value. I really got pulled into the value. It all started as a practical thing for me, and it is always practical. That's the whole reason I do it, but there's a spiritual component there as well. And so what happens is I just started to do it for the practical reasons, and then what happened was I realized that I always had this on some level, but I didn't realize it. I didn't realize that I actually always had this consciousness within me, this present to the moment, awareness that I would get glimpses of without actually realizing it. So somehow naturally, I was always more conscious than I thought. But then what I did was I learned how to consciously get out of my head and enter the moment. And so what triggered my awakening was really all that anxiety, all that fear, all those worries. I was just like looking for a way out. Like I just couldn't take it anymore. So I was like, okay, you know what? Let's do this meditation. And then so I got really, really good at meditation. And then I started to realize that's actually my default state. Okay, being present in the moment is my default state. Because here's the thing, is that when I started meditating, I was living in my head, and then I occasionally got glimpses of being present in the moment. But then when I started listening to Eckhart Tolle, reading the book called The Power of Now, what happened was I realized that these two things can actually completely switch. You can completely switch the two. So I went from being in my head and occasionally getting glimpses of presence to actually living my life in the present moment a majority of the time. And then only now occasionally do I sometimes fall back into my head and then go back into the moment, which happens very rarely now. Because here's the thing, is that right now, I don't have any self-image issues for the most part. I don't have any worries. I have very to little, I have no anxiety pretty much. I don't worry about things a lot. I'm very connected to the moment. I just kind of enjoy what's happening in the moment right here, right now. I don't tend to overanalyze things anymore. And that's what I used to identify with. I used to say, I'm an overanalytical person. That's just who I am. I'm an overthinker. That's just who I am. That's how I am. And then I was just started to realize through this process of observing my thoughts, that's not necessarily true. That was a pattern in my head that I didn't have to actually identify with, and it was nothing more than a pattern, a conditioned pattern of the mind based on external conditioning that has nothing to do with who I am. Absolutely nothing. So then what started to happen was I realized that I don't need to be so absorbed into my thinking, and I can actually find the beauty and the aliveness of the moment right here, right now. And so this went from a practical beginning to, okay, how do I lower my anxiety? But then I realized at some point that it's not about surviving, but it's about thriving, because the ego, when you're unconsciously stuck in your thinking without realizing it, that's a survival mechanism. The ego, or in other words, the unconscious thought processes, you being absorbed into the thinking without realizing it, is a survival mechanism. And so the ego, in other words, the unconscious thought processes, you being absorbed into the unconscious thought processes, has nothing to do with thriving. It's a survival mechanism. And so it's not interested in becoming its greatest. Like when you're stuck on the ego, you're not worried about becoming your greatest version. That's not what you're worried about. You're worried about, surviving and getting by, waiting for Saturday. And so here's the thing, is that when you step out of that part of yourself, you start to realize, hey, wait a second, this is about thriving. It's time to live a life of thriving and becoming your greatest version. And so the more I meditated, the more I realized this. At that point, there was no going back. And so now here I am, recording a video every single day, helping others do the same. So that's all I have for you today. If you like this kind of content, then consider hitting that subscribe button and that notification bell. If you have any questions, just leave a comment below. I'll answer any question. I respond to every single comment. And if you want to go a little bit deeper into the present moment and learn how to step out of the thinking and actually find the peace, find the joy, find the aliveness of the moment right here, right now, that is always accessible to us, we just may not realize it because we're absorbed in the thinking, consider applying for a free consultation that is in the description. It's the website in the description of this video. If you want to apply for a free consultation, just hit that website and apply. Have yourself a great day, and see you in the next video.